AITA for not putting my wife's name on the house deed. She's my fiancée right now, but the argument we're having is that once we're married, she wants her name on the house deed. Years ago, I bought several acres as soon as I could afford it. Back then it was part of a ranch surrounded by other ranches. The owner needed money, so he parceled out this section and sold it to me. I built a small house on it and have lived in it ever since. Since it was originally part of a ranch, I did enough to legally keep it classified as a ranch, so the property tax is extremely low. Over the years, companies started to move to the neighboring big city and land prices started to go up. Almost all of the ranchers sold their lands to developers, so now there are huge houses surrounding mine. They start from $500,000 and go to several million. None of them sit on even an acre of land. My house is clearly the worst house around, and I have no doubt it's bringing the value of nearby houses down. That's all happened before I met and dated my fiancée. Now that we're engaged, we're talking seriously about our finances, and the only sticking point is the house. She wants her name on the deed once we're married because we'll be sharing our lives. Alternatively, she wants me to sell the house and we purchase a house together. I don't find either options attractive. In our state, whatever we bring to the marriage we take out. Since I will be bringing the house into the marriage, I can leave with it should things not work out. If I put her name on it, then she'll get half. If I sell the house, there's no way I'll be able to afford anything that's even close to what I have now. Not to mention our property tax will be several times higher. Then there's the drive time. My house is 30 minutes away from my work and 40 from hers. House prices has gone up so much that we'll have to move at least an hour away from our jobs. Like I said, we agreed with or compromised on everything else. This one issue is the only sticking point, and it's becoming a big one. So much so that she brought her family into it. This weekend her father took me out to dinner to have a man-to-man talk. He told me that if we're going to join our lives, we have to join everything. He expects me to do the right thing if I want to join their family. So now it's her entire family on one side and me by myself on the other. Am I wrong to want to keep the house I built by myself to myself? Edit 1. To answer a good question. Neither of us are rich. I bought the land at a very low price, but now it's worth 10 times as much. Even if I offer to sell half of it to her at its current value, there's no way she can afford it. That's why if we buy a house together, we'll have to move far from here and our jobs in order to get one we can both afford. Edit 2. To answer some common questions. In all, I spent about $200,000 to buy the land and build the house. Everything is paid off and I pay the extremely low taxes every year. The tax assessment on my property is about $2 million. I don't know anything about refinancing, but at our salary level, I highly doubt we would qualify. In fact, we've spoken to a real estate agent, and with a 20% down, our salary qualifies us for a $300,000 house. The property tax on a $300,000 house is many times the currently tax I pay now. I'm comfortable with us living in my house and paying all the taxes and maintenance by myself. Edit 3. To answer a common question. Many are asking about my compromise and pointing out her lack of financial security. My compromise is that we live in my house and I will pay all of the taxes, bills, and maintenance costs. Based on our conversation with the real estate agent, if we buy a $300,000 house, her half of the mortgage would be about $1,300, not including her half of the property tax and down payment. I pointed out to her that if I pay for everything toward my current house, she would be saving at least $15,600 a year over 30 years on the mortgage alone. That doesn't include the money she would be saving not paying the down payment and property tax. In my mind, that would give her plenty of financial freedom and security. Also, if I sell the land, I don't want to buy any new house outright with that money. The reason we went to see a real estate agent is that if we buy a house together, I want it to be something we can both afford, mortgage, down payment, taxes divided equally. I would put any money I make off the sale into my retirement account. That's the main reason why I haven't sold my land despite many developers begging me to. Yes, some actually begged. I view it as my retirement investment. Comment. You're not wrong, but neither is she. You have to find a compromise. That said, she made a huge mistake. By bringing her family into it and having her father personally discuss the issue with you, she showed that she doesn't regard you as an equal partner, and that she believes in bullying you into getting you to agree with her. The only acceptable solution here would be to consult a financial advisor for options and to discuss this between you two to find a solution. Her discussing this with her family is a mistake, her father discussing this directly with you is a deal-breaker type of mistake. Neither she, nor he, seem to understand how much of a massive overstep that was. Would you think it okay that your in-laws weigh in on your childbearing decisions? One thought with regard to a solution is to have a legal document drawn up that requires you to pay her 1/2 of the net value from month of marriage to month of transfer. She deserves something for living there as her home for 20 years if that's what happens. Since she didn't invest the money in the first place, I see your point of the current value solely being yours and not hers, but from the point of marriage on, she will be investing in the property. That makes it collectively both of yours. Have an appraisal done and you should be good to go. Bear in mind, I think you have a larger issue than just this property ownership. I can see from all the way here in Indiana that your fiancé has beautiful sparkly eyes, but those are actually dollar signs. Think about what people would do for $1 million. I'm not saying she doesn't love you, but I'm saying people get killed for less. The fact that she doesn't come from money makes me a little more suspicious. Involving her family? Super suspicious. I think I'd throw a test out. I'd tell her that you're leaving the property to a non-profit. Something you would support so it doesn't get suspicious. Maybe a battered women's shelter? It would be nice to know what she would do in that situation. Information is a wonderful thing to have. Had his priorities straight early in life and it has paid off in spades for him. A paid-off house with low taxes is practically a dream for most salaried or hourly workers. Like the original commenter said, it's time to talk to a financial advisor and devise a method for entwining their finances in a way that can't result in the loss of the house or property. I hope it's possible. Honestly, if I were in Op's shoes, I wouldn't want to marry a woman so hung up on such a thing. I think Op could contribute to a fund for his wife. A home down payment nest egg for that just-in-case scenario. This way, Op is directly investing in his wife's security and future. If that's not enough, then I don't know. Maybe Yadu got a gold digger after all. This is a really good point. I was forced to sell my house after my husband had a stroke in 2020, and we ended up having to rent. The house couldn't be modified to meet his needs without hundreds of thousands of dollars that we didn't have. We'll be renting for the foreseeable future, and maybe forever, because the housing market is awful and I can't regain what I lost. If I had what Up has, I wouldn't risk it either. You have nothing to back up your assumption that she can't afford her 10% of the down payment. They've consulted a professional on this, so it's safe to assume that she can. She just doesn't want to live in, and contribute to, a house that isn't ever really going to be her home. There is likely a compromise which works better for both of them if they sit down with an independent financial advisor. Involving her family was childish, but the rest isn't. Plenty of people aren't comfortable with the setup as it would leave them homeless should the marriage break down. Wanting to make sure she's not at a disadvantage isn't childish. I agree. I'm in a relationship with someone who bought more material goods than I have. I suggest a plan. That you both either start planning for an investment property or that you agree that in the event of a breakup you get your investment back but split any appreciation of the asset from marriage forward in half. From marriage you are both contributing to supporting each other. Otherwise it skews the relationship and she will always feel insecure. I think that comment was in response to the after 20 years she has to walk away with nothing. And it's a fair point to make. If she's currently paying for a place to live and she doesn't have to do that any longer living with Op, she has the ability to really build a good savings account because she doesn't have to pay housing expenses. The only way she would walk away with nothing is if she spends all her money instead of smartly investing it. Right now, she can get a 5% interest savings account and let her money just grow and grow. Would eventually have enough money to buy a whole house of her own. Next story 2. AITA for making plans to spend my son's first Christmas with my mill and not my parents. My mill is an incredible woman. She was a single mom of 3 kids for most of their lives. Their father not a good person and they were glad to get away from him when they were older, though he wasn't the most consistent anyway and never helped Mill at all. My husband thinks the world of her and was upfront when we met that he was a mama's boy. Not the codependent or toxic type. But his mom was his sole role model growing up and he always said he would help her in any way he could once he was an adult. I met her after dating my husband for 3 months and I fell in love with her quicker than my husband LOL. She is the warmest, kindest woman. She has been very supportive of us throughout the relationship. When we graduated college she bought us a joint gift since we were moving right in together. She also gave me the sweetest card that I had laminated and I keep it and treasure it. I have a decent relationship with my parents. They did their best when I was a kid. But once I flew the nest, they were way less invested in my life. Sometimes it feels like they wanted me to chase them as an adult. Either that or they disliked that I moved out at all. But after a year of college they started traveling the world and we didn't see each other often. I would call but sometimes they were busy. So the relationship wasn't very close or consistent. One of the times I flew out to see them they weren't even there. During my wedding they wanted to be more involved than they were, but they were in another country for most of that time. They would expect me to stay up late to go over wedding plans with them, and they also didn't want to fly in for fittings for their outfits and yet were jealous that I went with Mil for hers. They moved back home in 2020, just before the whole world shut down. When I announced my pregnancy, my Mil was the one who would call and check in on me and who joined me for some appointments when my husband couldn't make them. My parents were always busy. Mil even brought me food in the later stages of my pregnancy when I was too sore and too sick to do anything. She has also been an amazing grandma and support. My parents expect me to do all the visiting with the baby. My husband and I wanted to stay home for Christmas this year and we asked Mil if she'd like to join us. She said yes. My parents asked if we would spend Christmas with them. I told them we already had plans with Mil. They asked to have my son for Christmas at least and I was like no. They said they were starting to feel more like dad's side than mom's side and I should have planned for them to see their grandson's first Christmas and not Mil. Ever since I have felt slightly bad, but they have been really angry and expressed a lot of jealousy. Any consideration I might have given to inviting them to was gone because I feel like they will make the day stressful. Plus they'll just be rude to Mil out of this jealousy they feel. Comment. I mean, I hardly even need to justify it or delineate the reasons, you already did. There's no question here, do what you want. It's not out of spite, you just made the plans you want. They have made themselves distant. And no, they don't get to ask to have your son with them at least, like, without you? Yeah, no. Especially when it's Op's son's first Christmas, hell no. If they wanted to be more involved with Op and their grandchild's life, then they shouldn't have been too busy and expecting Op to go to them. I experienced this exact same dynamic. My mom has always expected mom's side to supersede dad's side. But I simply do not play that game. I try to make it all as equal as possible, but at the end of the day, I do what is best for my children and honestly, my own mental health. Can I just add how nice it is to read about a lovely Mil? This woman sounds amazing and wants to be there for you, and honestly with her in your life, you are well ahead of the bullshit your parents are trying to manipulate you into. Take your Mil as an example of what a good relationship should be and let your parents figure out why they are in the position they are in. I love both my parents and my in-laws, and luckily we live pretty much equidistant from both. The one thing my mom said to me when I got married was that my family was now my husband, and later on, my kids too. Christmas morning is for the kids, and they should experience it at home. So, we've always had Christmas morning at home. Your parents should be happy that you have such a good rapport with Mil. It's rare that you have that kind of connection, and she sounds wonderful. It's perfectly normal to want to spend your baby's first Christmas in your own home. You should not be expected to travel, and your Mil was awesome to volunteer to come over and spend it with you guys. I think it's telling they said they thought of themselves as the dad's side. Like, WTF. Are they implying that dad's birth family isn't as important, or doesn't deserve to be as present? And now they are sulking like children? You obviously made the right choice. Keep this behavior in mind for the future. They sound like they'd say not so nice things about you and husband when you guys aren't around, or they will hold your boundaries against your baby. I'd keep an eye on them in the future.